Hello everyone, welcome to the course. Human rights law is an area of law which deals with the study of human rights and authorities of the state and the organization of the state. Traditionally, human rights law has often been studied by means of volume of very large books. But the study guide will provide you with a concise understanding of the basic principles and focus of this course. It will lead you to areas that are germane in the study of human rights law. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to 1. Define or explain the term human rights. 2. You'll be able to differentiate the nature and scope of human rights on the basis of ideology. Thirdly, you'll be able to explain whether or not human rights are time and culture specific or whether they are universal. You should be able to give a historical account of the evolution of human rights from pre-modern age. Now let's begin by examining and defining human rights. First, what do we mean by human? It means relating to human beings. That means relating to us as members of the human race, as Homo sapiens, as a man, as a woman, or as a child. Therefore, human rights, it means the freedoms, immunities, and benefits that according to modern values, all human beings should be able to claim as a matter of right in the society in which they live. Some of these rights are immediately enforceable, binding commitments, and they are usually reflective of the values of the community. Like we know in our constitution, the 1999 constitution, which is the current constitution which we have in Nigeria, human rights provision called the fundamental rights is contained in chapter 4 of the 1999 constitution, and they are enforceable. And we have some also contained in chapter 2, which are still debatable whether they are enforceable or not. So thus enforcement and sanction determine the characterization of any particular human rights. Adherents of the natural law principles have said that certain of these rights exist as a higher law than the legal system or any positive law. Such rights are universal and absolute, irrespective of space and time. Some of these ideologies, like the Marxists, have little place for human rights within the framework of the legal order. Like Tonkin emphasized, he said conventions on human rights do not grant rights directly to individuals. They feel that human rights just mean not more than the following: that all states have a duty to respect the fundamental rights and freedoms of all persons within their territories, and that states have a duty not to permit discrimination by reason of sex, ethnicity, religion, or language. And lastly, we will consider the historical perspectives of human rights. The global concept of human rights transcends any known period in history. The fight for the protection of human rights still continues, and the main organization in the forefront is the United Nations Organization and lately the African Union. From biblical history, we see that the ancient Israelites made efforts at one time in Egypt and at another time in Babylon to free themselves from slavery and bondage. That is all what this human rights is about. People have been fighting from dictatorship. They don't want the government of the day to have absolute power over them. Like the social contract theory postulates, we donated our powers to the government to protect our interests, and so they are not allowed even to take this social contract for granted. They should abide by the rule of law and do not violate any of our human rights. So before we conclude this lesson, I'll give you a few seconds to attempt the self-assessment exercise. So now that you have defined human rights, you should be able to know what it is. Then you should be able to visualize human rights from the perspective of persons claiming them, and also from the perspective of those whose duty it is to protect them. We have also seen the approach of the exponents of the principles of natural law, the positivism, Marxism. As the states are being developed, there have been different views. Some feel the human right is natural to us as human beings, no matter where you live, it is a universal right that God has given us and nobody should take it away from us. But whereas the positivists, they feel that the human rights are those rights that are protected in our laws, that where they are not enshrined in the legal order, they cannot be protected, and so they cannot be enforced. So human rights exist as social facts. What is or what is not human rights may all depend on their acceptance by the international community. So I'll see you in the next class. Thank you.